Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Navisworks Set Up and Run Reusable Test Files. My name is John Atkinson, and I'm an application engineer here at CTC, and with that, we'll get going. So Navisworks is a great tool for finding clashes between model elements from our various disciplines. So in this webinar, we're going to teach you how to create those files containing all of your typical clash tests and using search sets. This is going to allow us to quickly generate clash reports in just minutes from one project to another. So we'll learn how to efficiently export from Revit to Navisworks, create search sets and tests to efficiently generate those clash reports, and save those search sets and tests to use in your next project. So the problem has been setting up views in Revit to export to Navisworks can be really tedious and time-consuming task. Compound that with setting up individual clash tests, and it really begins to use up our valuable time. It could take us hours to get useful clash tests. So the solution, if we set up a series of views in our template to represent what we want to export, we can use it in every project. Likewise, we can use search sets instead of selection sets to grab the models we want to clash, and if we set up a series of clash tests, we can export those as well as all the search sets included. So to create our Revit views for export, we're going to create a 3D view, name it appropriately. I like to use by discipline or sub-discipline rather. Then we set those views to coordination. We set all of our visibility graphics to show only the things that we want to export in that file. We can't use a view template because the exporter doesn't work properly, but we can set up a view template for each one, apply it, and then set it back to none. So we go through and we create 3D views for all of our disciplines or categories or however you like to export your models. My typical view exports are arc, elect, fire, HVAC, hydronic, plumb, struck. Those are the views I make and also the export files that I create. I use that same naming convention. So in order to export from Revit, we go to that Add-ins tab. We select the drop-down on the external tools, select Navisworks Export, click the Navisworks Settings button, make sure that Export Linked Files is checked. Then we navigate to the project folder, name the file by discipline or category, click Save, and we repeat that for all of our views. So I'm going to jump into Revit. Here I have a default 3D view, and I'm just going to quickly rename this to Navis Arc. Say OK. Go into my visibility graphics, and currently this model is set up to use work sets. Not a recommended workflow, but it works well in this case. So I can select all of my work sets I don't want to export, hide those, say OK, and I'm only left with my architectural model that I have linked in. Next, I go to my Add-ins tab, External Tools, Navisworks, Settings file, Navisworks Settings. and make sure Convert Linked Files is checked. Rename this. Navigate to my project folder first. Just going to throw it on my desktop. Call it Navis Arc. Leave it as an NWC. Hit export. And that exported all of my architectural elements. Then I would duplicate the view, rename it. We'll call this one HVAC. Visibility graphics. Grab my HVAC, unhide that. Hide my architectural. There are all my elements. Looks like I've got some basic walls stuck in here. So I can go into my visibility graphics, turn those off. I also have ductwork, more ductwork, and transitions and air terminals. And a floor drain. But I can quickly run that same export, call it Navis HVAC. I know my settings are correct. Hit OK. And that generates my file. Now, in Navisworks, it's a simple enough thing to open up your Navis Manage, append all of your newly created NWC files, and then save that to your project folder. So we'll do that now. Open up a new project, use append, and I've created my architecture all the way through structural. I'll grab those elements here, say OK. They all come in. There are my wall elements. I'm ready to go. Now to create search sets, we're going to go to the Home tab and select the Select and Search panel and select that Sets drop-down and click Manage Sets. Then we'll open up the Find Items dialog. We'll find the items, and what we want to do is set the category column to item, property column to file name, set the condition to contains, and then set that value to ARC or match the other disciplines. So here's our sets drop-down. Open our Manage Sets. Here we are. Find items. From here, I'm going to say item, file name, contains, ARC. Down here we can match the case. We can say find all. Now that we have all those, the next step would be to save those search sets. So once we have click Find All, save those search sets by using the binoculars. And that's right here. I'm just going to call that ARC and say OK. I can right-click and duplicate that. And when I select it, I can come over here, change that file. I don't want to use this drop-down. but I'll type in HVAC, and notice in my search in, all of my files are highlighted. I'll click Find All, right click. I'm going to rename this to HVAC, and I'm going to update it. Go back here and rename that. HVAC, Find All. I can right click and select Update. So you can see I have some blue highlighted elements here. Click Architectural, click HVAC. We can keep doing this with all of our elements. Let's try plumbing next. Oops, duplicate, rename, plumb. Change this one, PLMB. Find all, and all my plumbing highlights. Right click, update. So we can duplicate and create all of those necessary searches and then change those elements, name them accordingly. So to create those search sets, we're finding those items in the dialog box. In the Find Items dialog, select each name, and if you noticed, every time I select it, my Find Items updates to show me the things that that particular search set is providing me. Architectural shows me the architectural and Find Items. Plumbing shows me that file name. So now we get to the clash tests. So we want to open up the clash detective, add the tests, create a test for each file versus another file, select our drop down under the set selection column and select sets, and then set each side to match the file names that we've created with the search set. Once all the clashes are created, then we click Update All, click the Export Import button, and that will save that the clash tests. What's nice about this is it also brings all of those associated search sets as long as we're using those. So with that, I'll close here, go to my clash detective. I have no tests, so I can add one. Going to rename this one to, come here, Plum versus Arch. Now instead of selecting my file, I can hit my drop down and say selection sets Plum versus selection sets Arc. Run that test, and anytime any of those files gets updated, as long as I've used that same naming convention, as long as that file contains Arc HVAC Plum, it's going to quickly update. So now that I have a clash test created, I can simply go to the Import Export Clash Tests button, select that, export it out, create a new file, and build that, and be able to use this over and over. So one of the things I did previously was created those sets, and here are the test sets that I usually build. So I have my architecture versus electrical. I believe I've got 21, 22 of them in here. So I can simply come in here, say import my clash tests, say OK, and it brings all of those elements in. I'm going to delete this one. So I'm just left with all of my other elements. And you'll notice now I have several different search sets. And now that I have all my tests in here, I simply click Update All, and it's going to go through and find all of my elements. You'll notice my previous architecture versus plumbing had 13 clashes. This one only has 2. I'll show you why. Because we can create ignore statements. So we can have search sets that go through and ignore certain conditions. So I can tell it to ignore any clash between wall, ceiling, floor, and roof with any other clash with pipes, fittings, ducts, or what have you. In order to do that, we need to create another search set, and we'll label it wall, ceiling, floor, roof, or whatever you feel is appropriate. And then we set the following. We want to set the category column to element, property column to category, condition to equals, and then we want to set the value to walls, ceilings, floors, roofs. Then right-click each one of those new lines and set that OR condition. So in order to do that, I'm going to come up to my Find Items. Change that from item to element, and then category equals, and we could say pipe, elements, floors, walls, ceilings, roofs. And then it automatically generates a new line. Again, I can go in and say element category equals walls. It's not an OR condition right now. This is set to an AND, so that category needs to be equal to pipes and walls, which isn't going to happen. So I right-click the element and set that to a plus or an OR condition, so it's pipes and walls. I'll show you what I mean over here. I have one set up walls, floors, ceilings, roofs. So I have it set in my values, walls, ceilings, floors, roofs, and they're all set to an OR condition. Next, I want to create one for pipes, ducts, and air terminals. Then I want one for just light fixtures and another one for ceilings only. So if we're clashing electrical versus architecture, I don't necessarily want those light fixtures to ignore walls. I just want them to ignore any clashes with ceilings. So I need to have those separated out versus any electrical fixture clashing with a wall. So if we go into our clash detective, I'll select my arc versus electrical, and on my rules you'll see I can either ignore a selection set with walls, ceilings, roofs versus pipes, ducts, and it doesn't matter. I'm not going to use that one, but I do want to ignore lights with ceilings. So we put a checkbox in that. So here's a quick screenshot of how we generate additional search sets with OR conditions. and then adding ignore rules. So when we're in our Clash Detective, we can go to that Rules tab and select New at the bottom right. Let's go back in there. I can say New. And here I need to say Specified Selection Sets. This also means search sets. So items where one item is in a selection set called Set, and the other item is in a selection set called Set. If I click that, that's going to give me a drop down to allow me to pick lights and then ceilings. I can change this to be lights versus ceilings. Say OK. Check that. And that is our new ignore condition. So I can click update all, and that's going to update that Clash to show me that there are no collisions between lights and ceilings. So here's a quick shot of what we just did. We went to the Rules tab. Down in the bottom right, we click New, select Specified Selection Sets, and then clicked Set, hit the drop down, selected our search sets that we created, and applied those. Now that we have all of these built and in place and functioning, we can go to that Export Clash Tests and use that over and over and over and get very consistent results. So if I had New File, Append, I'll grab my files again, select those two, remove those. Here's our file. Open up Clash Detective, import Clash Tests, say OK. Here they are. Update all. Boom. Same thing with our Revit. I'd have some pre-made views in my template and simply go in, export, make sure that was my export linked was checked, so I don't have to open up all the individual models. I can do it right from the model I'm working in. Convert linked files, save, and go. And this would altogether probably take me 5 to 10 minutes tops to be able to go through. Once everything is preset, should be good to go.